Just a couple opening comments here today on the WD-40 separation. I was going to do a time-lapsed video on the separation to see how long it takes. Shook it up, put it on the bench over there where I'm working just to watch it. 5 hours later, nothing. You couldn't even tell anything. Next morning, nothing. So I think it's temperature related. It's been warm, well, around 73 up here, even at night. So I have a feeling if I put it in the refrigerator, it would separate, but so for what it's worth. Next is this wonderful face mill. This guy removes material like you wouldn't believe. As I used to do the fly cutter and end mill, I'd use the end mill when I wanted little chip mess, all over the place. And then I use the fly cutter when I really had to take some material down, but this really takes it off even faster than the fly cutter with less mess. So I've been using this, and I'll show a little clip of it. It turns out, with playing around with it, the belt drive upgrade is on the lowest speed. The motor's smallest pulley to the spindle biggest pulley. Maximum speed on the pot, and you get just a gorgeous finish. So I'll show that. Sorry, you can hear some guys shoveling, more construction in the neighborhood. And then today's video was supposed to be on the constant force pistons spring upgrade. Ran into a bit of a setback with the bandsaw, so the horizontal bandsaw, the Win. So I thought just as a heads up to those who did buy one of these things, the nightmare you're going to face if that blade breaks. So here you go, and hopefully see you next Friday with the constant force pistons. Okay, it's going to be very difficult to try to remember everything that happened in this nightmare on what I went through to make this thing work again. So please bear with me. I was making the top piece that goes on the top of the column that holds the constant force pistons. So it's pretty big. That's 3 inches by 1.5 inches. It's in the vise. I've got it marked. I'm cutting it to approximate size. I'll get it to actual size on the mill. It's cutting away, having a good time here. My thumb's starting to cramp up from holding this button to keep it running because it's slow. There's a lot of material to remove. Halfway through, and all of a sudden I see the blade is starting to bob up and down. Like, what's going on? So I raise it up, and you run it, and yes, the blade's going up and down, and I can't figure out, well, why would it be doing that? Kind of check everything's still tight, nothing's loose on it. Run it again, and it's still bobbing up and down. But this time, when I stopped it, lo and behold, luck, I guess, dead center, it stops, and I can see this little V crack in the blade. It's starting to break and split. Great. So now I'm shut down on the project for now, and I got to figure out what to do. And I remembered on a previous video, somebody had left a comment on where you can buy this blade, because this is a really oddball blade. It's 56.5 inches long, 1/2 inch tall, 25 thousandths thick. They actually say it's 22 gauge, and here we go with industry standards, because one place says it's 31 thousandths, the other place says it's 25 or 29, something like that. You mic it, this is 25 thousandths thick. But I'm thinking, yeah, I cannot find or remember where this place is to buy this blade custom made in the US. So the only choice is, well, let me see what Amazon has. And sure enough, there's 2 blades listed on Amazon. One is this company. It's called Machinist. They make a ton of blades, different lengths for different machines, all the same pitch, 14 gauge. And I also found a Starrett. This one was $16. The Starrett is $27, and I think it was 20 or 14 gauge also. And I knew this is going to be made in China, and you turn it over, and yeah, giant letters, made in China. And you can tell more because it says, please do not touch the shape teeth with your fingers. Okay. And it also comes with their QC sticker, which you know is fake, because here's the stamp from the guy, and it's perfectly straight. It's amazing the guy got it straight. More fake certificates of inspection. So I'm thinking, you know, what the heck? I can't remember the other place. Let me buy this blade. Comes in a couple of days, and you can tell by the package it was wrapped. You know how they just kind of fold things in on itself. Oh, there's wind. Just slammed the door here. Is there still light? Yeah, it's still kind of lit. Alright, so you know when you cut those cable ties that are on both ends, you're going to get cut up because it's going to spring out. So, in a word of caution, doing this, wear gloves, some kind of thick gloves, and wear a jacket or something thick on your arms because you're going to get cut up. So I cut the cable ties, and then I figure I'll just throw it on the ground and let it spring itself out. Perfect, done. Now, yeah, I forgot to mention, the blade breaks. So I bought this back March of last year, and through every few months or so I go to Wynn's website and I check for the blade, and it's always out of stock. Why? I don't know. I guess they figure if you need a new blade, just buy a new bandsaw. So they don't have it, and that's why I went to Amazon. But so where was I now? Now you would think I've got the new blade, and you would think that you don't have to mess with any adjustments or anything. You just put the blade on, do the tension, and it works fine. No, not even close. I had no idea. This is where my nightmare began. First, I'm running it, and I can see the blades bobbing in and out, or not up and down, but you can see it. There's a kink in it, some long kinks. So I take the blade off, and I lay it on a flat surface, and I'm rolling it, and you can see, okay, it goes up here. So you kind of bend it a little bit, and you look at it until you get it straight, and then you roll it and you find more spots. So after a lot of fiddling around with that, I finally got the blade pretty straight, and you put the blade on there, and what happens is you run it, and there's a bearing here that the top surface rides on, and there's also a bearing here. For some reason, you run it, it stays fine here, but this blade drops down a bunch, enough that it's starting to saw the casting at the bottom. So great, I don't know what gives with that. So first thing you do is you think, well, maybe I have to adjust the rollers. It's pinching the blade too hard and pushing it out. Don't know why it's not doing this side, but okay. So now experimenting with these rollers. First thing is it's 2 rollers. They're independent, and they're press fit onto this bolt. And the bolt is shaped like a cam. So if you put a wrench on the bottom and you turn it, the bearing will go in or out of the blade. So now you start wondering, how am I going to center the blade up? But I just kind of ignored that. And I messed with both sides, I think. I probably started with this side first because this seemed to be having the problem, and didn't get anywhere. So no matter what I did, it dropped down. And I found a big pain with these, I think they're called acorn nuts or whatever, because they've got lock washers under there. You're trying to spin this, and now the lock washer is hanging onto the nut, so you're loosening it. And when you loosen it, the rollers now are starting to do this V number between the front and the back one. So I'm having a heck of a time here trying to hold this or spin this with the wrench at the same time I'm spinning this so that it's not loosening, and I'm using the cam mechanism. At one point it just became ridiculous, so I took both of these completely off. I'm over on the bench now with a bunch of wrenches, thickness gauges, trying to set gaps for 30, I think it was around 30 thousandths. Put them back on, run the blade, same thing. Drops on this side, stays put on this side. I'm trying to figure what in the world is going on. I can't remember how much I went through, but another thing that got me is I guess I pulled the whole thing out, wasn't paying attention to the washers. They've got 2 washers on each stack, bearing stack, and the washers are different thicknesses. If you don't pay attention to the stacks when you're putting it back together, you can wind up in a situation where now the bottom bearing is on the teeth itself. So the next thing I know is I'm sitting here with calipers measuring stack thicknesses to get them all the same height again, put it back together. Now the rollers are off the teeth. Oh, it just went on and on. What I finally wound up doing is I left this side alone because it's always seemed to be fine. This side, get rid of the lock washer because the lock washer was digging into the metal, making it not a flat surface anymore, which caused the bearings to do this number again. So I had to file the surface down to get it flat, put regular washers under here, replace the acorn nuts with nylon lock nuts. And now when I spin the bottom piece, this stays put. It'll just move with it on top of the washer. Everything stayed straight. So now I still cannot figure out for the life of me what's wrong. Because you have it out, all the way out, and the blade stays on the bearing. The second you start moving it, angling it back in to square up the blade starts walking out again. So I guess maybe by luck, I always had the top cap screw in and the bottom one out, and I was using that. I'd bring it in and then tighten it and the blade would walk out. I finally, for some reason, got rid of the top one because I'm figuring I have to go down further. It's bottomed out right now. I'm figuring I have to go down further to stay on the blade. Get rid of the top screw with just the bottom screw in there. Had it all the way over, pushed it down, locked it, run it. Okay, the blade's staying put, it's staying on top bearing, and the pulleys, you'll see there's a shelf towards this end. In other words, I don't know how to describe it, there's like the blade goes on the pulley here, and then there's a lip, and your blade has to go up against the lip, not on top of it. When I was doing all this other adjustments, every time I turn around, the blade's riding on the top of the lip rather than in front of it. So everything's fine. I'm all the way over. It's running behind our side of the lip. This is on top of the blade. Now I brought it in just a little bit. Tighten it down, run it. Okay, it's staying on the bearing. It's staying in the right spot. Kept bringing it in, squaring it up more and more until just magically it's staying put. And when you bring it in more, you still have to drop it down to keep it on top of the blade. Now suddenly, magically, it's staying put, everything's running good. Go to put the top screw in, it just makes it in there. So it's full on bottom out. What else can I say here then? So I've got it going, finally, finished doing my cutting, and so I'm just going to let it be for now. I finally remembered the site, or found the site that in the US that custom makes these blades, and I will order it. It's $18 versus the $16 made in China blade. And what else here? So this was a total nightmare. This took days. You know, I'd play with it for a while, get frustrated, walk away, and just try to find something else to do. Now there was more I was going to say on it, but yeah, the 14 TPI blade takes forever to cut through anything. So that's why I want to change the blade out, but I don't want to mess with this until I'm sure all my projects are out of the way. So be very careful. I don't know how you can be careful with your blade, but you try to find any YouTube, the manual for the Wen was totally useless, doesn't say anything about replacing it, doesn't say anything about tension. The only thing I could find was one text website that said the least amount of tension possible. No, I don't know what that means. Least, well, enough where it just doesn't fall off. I don't know. So I think I've got it. What I did was, with the back off, you can put your hand back here and you can feel the blade, but even more so, when you turn it around and you look at the blades on the pulleys, if you see it arching up and not really in a straight line with the pulleys, the tension's too loose. So I brought the tension down just enough where the blade is now going straight across from pulley to pulley, and that's it, and it seems to be okay. As far as the bearings, one video said you just want to adjust them so that they just touch the blade. These, they spin. You can, I don't think you can see it in the video, but if I'm moving this back pulley, the blade's doing this number, the same way with this side. The top one here is free spinning. It's not even touching the blade, but the bottom one, again, when I move it, the blade's moving. So that's kind of where I have them set. I think the front ones are loose too, yeah. Oh, they're just barely touching, and I can kind of see the blade moving. So that's where I set that. One last thing, and now I can't remember it. Oh, yeah. So I'm using a 1, 2, 3 block to check the squareness here. Yeah, you can kind of see it. Yeah, I can move it pretty easily here back and forth, but 1, 2, 3 block vertically while I'm lifting it up to try to square this blade up, and also this way to set the angle, and it's a kick. This is vertical now, and I'm not even on 0. I'm at what, 1, 2 degrees. So I had to tilt this thing 2 degrees to get it all squared up. So I'm sure if I brought it in more, I could be more on the 0, but I don't want to mess with this thing anymore. And on this was ridiculous too. I don't know why they have to put 600-pound springs in there. I'm fighting this thing, trying to hold it up so I can spin the cap head to get this off, to get this thing off. So I wound up, I just get it apart, get that spring out of there, and I've got a really wimp spring in there now. It's just so easy to lift it up. So I can get it out of the way or whatever I need. And I guess this one's somewhat better, but So yeah, I guess it's probably where you want it, just kind of out of the way over here. So that's my nightmare, which took 3 or 4 days, which is why I'm behind in doing the constant force piston video. Just wanted to do this to try to maybe help somebody else if your blade happens to break